Hi, today I'm going to show you how you can run containers for free on Google Cloud Run. Containers are a really useful type of software application that come pre-packaged in a single file that contains the application, all of the software it needs to run, and the operating system as well that it runs on. It's super convenient for getting a piece of software up and running if you're afraid that it might be a little bit difficult to install. So the first step, go to cloud.google.com and open the console. Then from the sidebar, open Cloud Run. You need to have a project to run your containers inside of, so I'll set this up. So everything that you create in a project has the same billing and permissions settings, and that's just the way that Google organizes it. Then we need to create a new service, which is the term that Google uses here for containers running in the cloud. And here they give us an option to deploy from a container image. An image is a single file which becomes a container when it's run. This is the fastest way to set it up because we can just find a pre-existing image on the internet and make a container out of it. But first we have to upload the image we want into Google's image registry. And we've got to enable that, which takes a couple of seconds. As you can tell, working with Google Cloud, you end up spending a lot of time just enabling different things. Now that that's done, we need a container image to run. And the best place to look for container images is on the Docker Hub. So I'm going to go to the Docker Hub website, and you can search around on here for different images, but I'm going to use the YouTube downloader website image. And most importantly, from here, I'm going to need to take the docker pull command. Then to run that command, I need to open the Cloud Shell in Cloud Run. Now I'm pasting this command into the Cloud Shell and hitting return. So now we just downloaded the image from one URL on Docker Hub, and we want to upload it to another URL on Google Cloud. So first we use the docker tag command to tag it with the new URL. So that's going to be docker tag, then the identifier that we just got from Docker Hub, gcr.io/your project ID / then choose a name for your image. So then finally we run docker push with that same URL that we just set up. We're now waiting for the upload to complete, and when it's finished, I'll close this console. So now, as you can see, after all the effort, the container registry API is enabled and the image that we want is visible here. So now I'll just guide you through a couple of the parameters that we still have to set before we can run this container. First is the CPU allocation setting. So basically the way that Cloud Run works is that when someone tries to use the container or access it via the internet, if it's not running already, it will launch the container, and after that container hasn't been used again for 15 minutes, the container will then be terminated and all of the files or any changes on it would then be lost. So that's true actually for Cloud Run no matter what option you choose here. But if you choose the first option, the container will go to sleep immediately when it's not being used. Whereas if you choose the second option, the container is going to stay fully awake until it's terminated after those 15 minutes without being used. So, okay, the next setting is to allow unauthenticated invocations, and that's good. That means it can be accessed from the web. And the third setting we need is the container port option. We can find that out by going to the Docker Hub image documentation page and searching for port. And this is the port number that we want to give to Cloud Run, just so it knows to connect the web port 80 to this port on the container, so that when people go access the container through the web, it will connect. And finally, the default memory and CPU allocation settings should be good enough for us here. And yeah, that's pretty much all the settings that we need. So normally this is going to take a few seconds to create the container, but once it's finished, it will show us the public URL that we can use to access the container. And here it is. It's the YouTube downloader application. Yeah, I'm just gonna try it out, just see everything's working. And this is downloading really slowly. That's not because the application is running slow, but it seems like YouTube is detecting that the download is coming from a server rather than a home IP, and so it's throttling the bandwidth. To get around that, you'd probably have to use a proxy. Yep, everything works. So that's all you need to know to get started with Cloud Run. But if you're interested, I'll just go over some useful information about the pricing real quickly. If I go to the metrics tab and I look at metrics from the past hour, there are 3 interesting graphs. You can see the billable time, the CPU usage, and the memory usage. So the CPU and the memory usage don't affect the pricing, but they would tell us when we might want to start to increase those limits that we set before. Here you can see our CPU usage stayed around 29% and the RAM was around 23% the whole time, so that's fine. Now, if you Google Cloud Run pricing, you'll find a page which tells you the overall pricing scheme. And you'll see the monthly limits you have to stay under until you'll automatically get charged. If you remember that I ran my container with 1 virtual CPU and 0.5 GB of RAM, so you could use that information by dividing to calculate how long a single container could run until I hit those limits. Hope this helps.